Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sense of wonder? A feeling that, you are part of something vast, something ancient, something mysterious. We humans have always been questioners. We ask about the stars, the oceans, and the very fabric of reality. But there is one question that has followed us since the dawn of our time. It is a question that whispers in the quiet moments of our lives and roars during our greatest losses. What happens when we die? This is not just a question, it is the ultimate mystery, the final frontier of human experience, a puzzle that connects every single one of us across time and space. This question of what comes next is woven into the very DNA of our civilizations. We have built pyramids, written scriptures, and composed symphonies, all trying to find an answer. We see it in the eyes of a child learning about loss for the first time. We feel it in our own hearts as we age, watching the seasons of our lives turn. Is death an end? A final, silent closing of a book? Or is it a doorway? A transition into something else, something new, perhaps something we cannot even imagine with our current minds? Every person who has ever lived has stood before this same great question. The quest for an answer is a journey we all take, whether we know it or not. It shapes our beliefs, our values, and the way we choose to live our days. Some find comfort in faith, in promises of heavens and reunions. Others look to science, seeking answers in the complex wiring of our brains and the laws of physics. Many simply live with the uncertainty, finding peace in the mystery itself. No matter your path, the question remains a constant companion, a shadow that walks beside you, reminding you that your time here is precious and finite. So let us embark on this journey together. Let us explore the maps drawn by our ancestors and the theories crafted by our greatest minds. Let us listen to the stories of those who have stood at the very edge of life and looked over. We may not find a definitive answer, in fact we probably won't, but perhaps in the seeking, we can find something just as valuable. We might find a deeper appreciation for the life we have right now. We might find a little more courage, a little more love, and a little more wonder. Let's ask the oldest question one more time. For as long as we have buried our dead, we have imagined a world for them to inhabit. Our ancestors did not see death as a final stop. They saw it as a journey, and they created elaborate maps to guide the soul on its way. In ancient Egypt, life on earth was seen as a mere preparation for the eternal journey that followed. They believed the soul, or Ka, would travel through a dangerous underworld called the Duat. To navigate it, they filled tombs with everything a person might need: food, tools, and most importantly, the Book of the Dead. This was a collection of spells and instructions to overcome monsters and pass the final judgment. The ancient Greeks and Romans also told stories of a world beyond this one. Their underworld, ruled by the god Hades, was a shadowy place. For most, it was a gray, uninteresting existence, a pale reflection of their former lives. But there were special places for heroes and the virtuous. Elysium, or the Elysian Fields, was a paradise of eternal springtime for those who had lived a good life. These beliefs show us a deep human need for justice, a desire for our actions on earth to have meaning and consequence in the world to come. They wanted to believe that a life well lived would be rewarded. In the East, the concept of the afterlife took a different shape, one of cycles and transformation. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the soul is not judged once for an eternal fate. Instead, it is caught in a cycle of death and rebirth called samsara. This cycle is governed by karma, the sum of a person's actions and their consequences. The goal is not to reach a heavenly paradise, but to escape the cycle altogether. This liberation, known as moksha or nirvana, is a state of ultimate peace and unity with the cosmos. It is a profound idea that we are not just living one life, but many, until we finally learn our lessons. The great Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam, offered a more linear vision of what awaits. They speak of a single life, followed by a final judgment. On that day, every soul will be held accountable for their deeds. Those who lived in faith and righteousness will be welcomed into an eternal paradise, a heaven or Jannah, a place of ultimate peace and closeness to God. Those who did not will face eternal separation and punishment. These powerful visions of heaven and hell have shaped Western and Middle Eastern cultures for centuries, offering both profound comfort and a powerful moral compass to billions of people. When we turn to science, the picture of death becomes both simpler and, in some ways, more complex. From a biological standpoint, death is a process, not a single moment. It begins when the heart stops beating, cutting off the flow of oxygen-rich blood to the brain. This is called clinical death. For a few minutes, the brain's cells, starved of oxygen, begin to shut down in a cascade of chemical changes. When this process becomes irreversible, and all brain activity ceases, we reach what is called biological death. To science, this is the end of the line for the organism we once were. This scientific view tells us that everything we are, our thoughts, our memories, our feelings of love and sorrow, is a product of the 3-pound universe inside our skull. Our consciousness, that feeling of being me, is an emergent property of 100 billion neurons firing in an intricate, beautiful dance. When the dance stops, when the brain ceases to function, science suggests that consciousness simply winks out. Like a flame being extinguished, the light is gone because the fuel and the process that created it are gone. There is no ghost in the machine, only the machine itself. However, this is where the mystery deepens once again. Science is brilliant at explaining the how of things, but it often struggles with the why. The hard problem of consciousness remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in all of science. How does inert matter, collections of atoms and molecules, give rise to subjective experience? How do electrical signals become the redness of a sunset, the sweetness of a melody, or the feeling of love for another person? We do not have a complete answer. This gap in our understanding leaves a small but profound window open for speculation. Because we cannot fully explain consciousness, we cannot be entirely certain about what happens to it when the brain dies. Is it truly just extinguished? Or could it be that consciousness is more fundamental than we think? Some physicists and philosophers ponder whether consciousness is not produced by the brain, but is instead something the brain receives, like a radio tuning into a broadcast. In this view, the brain is a temporary vessel. While this is far from a mainstream scientific theory, it reminds us that science is a process of discovery. What we think we know today may only be a small piece of a much larger, more incredible reality. What if we could ask someone what death is like? In a way, we can. For decades, doctors and researchers have been collecting stories from people who have gone through near-death experiences, or NDEs. These are individuals who were clinically dead. Their hearts stopped, their breathing ceased, but were brought back to life. What they report is often startlingly consistent, regardless of their cultural or religious background. Many speak of leaving their physical bodies, watching from above as doctors work to save them. They describe this out-of-body experience as feeling peaceful and free from pain. As their journey continues, many report traveling through a tunnel or a darkness, drawn toward a brilliant, loving light. This is not a harsh, blinding light, but one described as being filled with pure, unconditional love and acceptance. Some say they met with spiritual beings or deceased relatives who were there to greet them. A common feature of these experiences is a life review, where they see their entire lives flash before them. But this is not a judgment. It is an opportunity to see how their actions, both big and small, affected others, viewed from a perspective of love and understanding. It is important to approach these stories with both an open mind and a healthy dose of skepticism. Scientists have proposed various biological explanations for these phenomena. The tunnel could be caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain's visual cortex. The feelings of peace and euphoria could be the result of a flood of endorphins and other neurochemicals released by the brain under extreme stress. These explanations are plausible, and they show how our incredible brains might construct such a profound experience as they are shutting down. They try to explain the how of the experience from a materialist point of view, yet these explanations do not always satisfy the people who have had these experiences. For them, the feeling of reality was more intense than everyday life. They come back transformed, with a reduced fear of death and a renewed sense of purpose. They often speak of the importance of love and knowledge above all else. Whether these experiences are a glimpse into another reality, or the final beautiful masterpiece of a dying brain, they offer us something profound. They suggest that the process of dying may not be something to fear, but a peaceful, and perhaps even loving transition. For many of us, the deepest fear of death is not about pain or judgment. It is the fear of non-existence. The idea that everything we are, our memories, our personality, our love for our family, will simply cease to be. That the universe will go on without us, and we will not be there to see it. This is the fear of the void, the terror of utter annihilation. It is a natural and profoundly human fear. We are creatures built for survival, hardwired to cling to life. The thought of our own consciousness being permanently switched off can feel like the ultimate tragedy. But what if we looked at this idea from a different angle? Before you were born, you did not exist for billions of years. The universe spun on, stars were born and died, and galaxies collided, all without you. Did it bother you? Of course not. You were not there to be bothered. The philosopher Alan Watts once said that coming into existence from non-existence is like waking up from a deep, dreamless sleep. Perhaps going back is just the same. It is not something to be experienced because the you who would experience it would no longer be there. It would simply be a return to the state you were in before you were born. We can also learn a great deal by listening to those who are consciously approaching the end of their lives. Palliative care workers and hospice nurses often share the wisdom they gain from their patients. As people get closer to death, they say that many of the things that once seemed so important, career ambitions, wealth, social status, begin to fade away. What remains are the simple, fundamental things. They talk about the love they shared with family and friends. They talk about moments of forgiveness, of connection, and of simple beauty. They regret not the things they did, but the things they didn't do. These lessons from the dying are a powerful gift to the living. They teach us to reevaluate our priorities. They remind us not to wait to say, "I love you." They urge us to forgive grudges, to spend time with the people who matter, and to appreciate the small joys of being alive. The fear of non-existence can be paralyzing, but it can also be a powerful motivator. It tells us that this life, this moment, is all we can be certain of, and that makes it infinitely precious. It encourages us to live in a way that when our time comes we can look back with peace, not regret. It might sound strange, but thinking about death can be one of the best ways to learn how to truly live. We spend so much of our time running from the thought of our own mortality. We distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with endless scrolling, anything to avoid confronting the fact that our time here is limited. But in doing so, we risk missing the beauty and urgency of the present moment. It is the awareness of death, the knowledge that this will not last forever, that gives life its vibrant color, its sweetness, and its profound meaning. Imagine if you were immortal. If you had all the time in the universe, would you still cherish a beautiful sunset? Would a conversation with a loved one feel as special? Probably not. Procrastination would become an art form taken to an eternal level. There would be no urgency to create, to love, to explore, or to forgive. It is the finitude of life that makes every choice matter. Every yes and every no carries weight because you only have a finite number of them. Knowing that the clock is ticking pushes us to be brave, to take chances, and to make our days count. This idea is not new. Philosophers from the Stoics of ancient Rome to the existentialists of the 20th century have spoken of, "Remember you must die." This was not meant to be a morbid obsession. It was a practical tool for living a better life. By keeping death in mind, we are reminded to focus on what is truly important. It helps us strip away the trivial anxieties and social pressures that clutter our minds. It asks us the powerful question, if today were my last day, is this how I would want to be spending it? This perspective can transform your entire life. It can give you the courage to leave a job you hate, to heal a broken relationship, or to pursue a dream you have long deferred. When you see life as a precious limited gift, you become more grateful for the small things, the taste of your morning coffee, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of a friend's laughter. The shadow of death does not have to be a dark cloud that follows you. It can be the backdrop that makes the bright moments of your life shine with even greater intensity. It is the ultimate reminder to be present, to be grateful, and to be alive. So, here we are at the end of our journey through this great mystery. We have walked through the tombs of Egypt and the fields of Elysium. We have peered into the workings of the brain and listened to whispers from the brink of eternity. We have faced the fear of nothingness and found in it a reason to cherish everything. After all this, what can we say for certain about what awaits us on the final journey? The honest answer is that the mystery remains. The final page of the book is still unwritten, or at least unread by those of us still in the story. We are left with a handful of grand possibilities, each profound in its own way. Perhaps there is nothing. A simple, silent end to consciousness, a return to the peaceful non-existence from which we came. This is the view of science in its current form, or perhaps, as Eastern traditions suggest, this life is just one chapter in a much longer story. We might be reborn, given another chance to learn and to grow. our souls cycling through countless lives until we achieve a final, blissful release. This is the possibility of reincarnation, a grand cosmic schoolhouse for the soul. Then there is the promise held by many of the world's great religions, the possibility of an afterlife, a conscious continuation of our identity in another realm, a place of reunion with loved ones, of peace, and of communion with a divine creator. This is the hope of heaven, of paradise, of an eternal reward for a life lived in faith and love. And finally, there is the possibility that the answer is something so far beyond our current comprehension that we do not even have the words or concepts to describe it. Something as unimaginable to us now as the concept of calculus would be to a single-celled organism. In the end, you must choose what you believe. Or you can choose to live with the not knowing, embracing the wonder of it all. But whatever you believe, the question of what happens after we die ultimately leads us back to the same conclusion. It leads us back to life. It tells us to live fully, with our hearts wide open. It asks us to love deeply without reservation because connection is what gives our finite time its infinite meaning. And it encourages us to never ever stop wondering. To look up at the stars and ask the big questions, knowing that the journey itself is the true destination.